Okay, so first and foremost, I'm so grateful for your time, and I'm also very grateful for those who have been able to join us and those who are watching us live on Facebook. I'm so thankful. So basically, Leaders of Change have been organizing leadership sessions to young people who are taking other initiatives in various fields and in various capacity. And for today, we are going to have one of my mentor personally and also a teacher, Mr. Saurabh Mittal, who is going to share with us some of the leadership challenges in the world post COVID-19. And this is very imperative for young leaders. So as part of this initiative, we are so grateful to have him. And he is currently in India. And as a matter of fact, he has worked in different continents and he has been able to help startups and also a lot of organizations in various capacity. But before then, I would like to introduce the speaker officially before we can start. So Mr. Saurabh Mittal is a co-founder of Kion, Question Your Own Notion, an initiative for provoking thought and bringing about active change. He believes that the only variable that is in one's control is the self. So the quest for change needs to start from there. Mr. Saurabh Mittal is an alumnus of IIT Delhi and Said Business School, University of Oxford, where he was a British Chevening Scholar. He has over 2 decades of experience consulting with Fortune 500 firms and has lived and worked across 5 continents. After moving to the foothill of the Himalayas near Dharamshala, he turned to leadership development and coaching young entrepreneurs and youth leaders in the space of transformative holistic education. He regularly speaks on entrepreneurship and is passionate about building ethical and conscious leadership in organizations. Mr. Saurabh Mittal serves on the boards of many educational institutes, including the Technology Business Incubator Catalyst at IIT Mandi and a number of startups. He has traveled extensively across India to explore experiments on alternative development and focuses his efforts on supporting interesting initiatives in the Pan-Himalayan region in India. So basically, our speaker today is one who has been able to show extensive knowledge in terms of leadership and coaching. And currently, we know with the COVID-19 situation is something which is a huge concern and it has distorted the world in a way. But then there's always solutions that we can find or opportunities that we can make out of our challenges. So for this reason, we have to embrace where we are now and think of how we can find ways and means to live life at its best. So the speaker today, his message is going to be very generic and is going to apply across various industries and also fields. So it shouldn't be as though it is limited to only those in India, but also is something that you can apply in your personal life, in your field, or in your industry, and you can get the best out of it. And because of leadership, we strongly believe that his leadership approach for today's section is mainly focusing on changing behavior, the mindset, and also how to make your life better. So I would like us to take our pens and paper because already I have a big book here where I'm going to write some of the key points, learnings, and insights. So Mr. Saurabh Mittal, please, the floor is yours. Thank you so much once again for honoring this invite.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ernest. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always sort of energizing and inspiring to talk to youth leaders, uh, young people who are wanting to change the way world looks for everyone's betterment, who are looking to make a difference in the organizations that they're building, the startups that they're working on, the social organizations that they're running. And as I understand, people who are probably going to be watching this or will see the recording later are people who are from Africa, young people who are from Africa, who are looking to make a difference, who are looking to, provide purpose, meaning to their own life. So I'm always very sort of energized and inspired myself interacting with this particular group. It's my affinity group, as I call it. These are the people I like to hang out with. So thank you, Ernest, for giving me an opportunity to talk to young people in Africa. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll try and keep it, sort of crisp. We have only 45 minutes or so. I will try and wrap up what I present in about 30, 35 odd minutes, and we can take some questions in the end. I will be sharing my screen. I have some slides that I will follow so that people can, sort of hear it from my side clearly. 1 second, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Are you able to see my screen,
Yes,
Ernest?
yes, please.
Okay, excellent. So let's talk about why did I pick up the topic that I picked up. I thought I'm talking to youth leaders, young leaders, and the world is undergoing a change, and a lot of people are trying to uh, figure out what's happening. They want to have more clarity. In, everyone seems to be groping in the dark right now. We have, political leaders, we have policymakers, we have corporate leaders, we have community leaders. Everything seems to be in a bit of a disarray. So I thought there are things that we could talk about which would create more clarity, and perhaps people could benefit, and that's why I chose the topic that I chose. I will start by talking about a quote from Leon C. Meganson, where he said, according to Darwin's Origin of Species, it is not the most intellectual of the species that survives. It is not the strongest that survives, but the species that survives is the one that is able best to adapt and adjust to the changing environment in which it finds itself. As I was mentioning earlier, I think the world around us is changing very fast in all ways. Um, if we can, take it politically, economically, um, socially, legally, uh, you know, how people are changing, how their behaviors are changing, how we're thinking about our communities, how we're thinking about our livelihoods, about our families. Everything seems to be somewhat, and this change has got accelerated because of the global pandemic, the crisis that we have, faced in last few months. The entire world went into a lockdown pretty much, and I'm sure many of you are signing in, as Ernest told me, from geographies such as US and Italy and South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria. So wherever you are, I'm sure you have had various kinds of challenges that you have faced. So I wanted to start with this particular quote, and for you to reflect on how the environment around you is changing, and it's actually adaptability which is the most important. In leadership, we talk about many things. We talk about intellectual quotient, we talk about emotional quotient, we talk about social quotient. I think there is another quotient called adaptive quotient, which has become extremely important. And going forward, this is something that I think would truly be what a leader needs to show. So what are we learning while we talk about things are changing around us? Um, Schools and colleges have shut down. People have started working from home. Suddenly, only essentials, businesses which sell essentials, are the ones which are seem to be surviving. Um, Travel has stopped. People are pretty much at home. You can't meet other people. You meet each other with a lot of restrictions. There is social distancing, or physical distancing, I like to call it, rather than social distancing. So there's so much which is happening around us. What are we learning? What are the key lessons that we're learning? I think one of the key lessons, and I tried summarizing it for myself, is life costs very little. Lifestyle is what we are spending on. One of the things people realized when they looked at their bank balances, their spending patterns, and what happened when everyone went into a lockdown and they were pretty much at home, that it is actually lifestyle that we were spending on. Life per se costs very little. Second is, if you don't learn from history, history repeats itself. And third is, we had stopped questioning, reflecting, and pondering on what we are enabling. I guess the third one is very important. It has given an opportunity. The pandemic, the crisis has given an opportunity to a lot of people to reflect and think about what kind of a life am I leading? What kind of a world I was building? People who never questioned um, their motives, their aspirations, their definitions of what success is, um, what money is supposed to do, what it should enable. I've started thinking about some of these things. So I think those are some of the big buckets in which we can, think about our learnings. Um, Also, while we think about our learnings, we should also think about what has changed already, what is changing, and what will change. Actually, incredibly lot, perhaps everything. It's going to be a seismic shift in life, and that's what we are currently seeing is perhaps the tip of the iceberg in terms of the changes that are coming our way. Is at least my personal understanding. We are only seeing, what's changing on the surface currently, but how it is changing our psyche, how it is changing our mindset. How is it that we will take decisions? How is it that we will inform? How is it that we are going to build anything, going forward? Is something that we have to think about. Ernest, a quick question. When I move a small screen, small zoom window on my screen, do you see that as well, or are you just seeing the slide? Is it distracting you?
It is. I can close it for you. Should I?
Yeah, if you can close it, then that would be great because I don't
Okay.
need to see it.
Please, is it okay now?
Okay. I have also minimized it so that I don't see it
Okay.
for myself.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to move on. I was just saying that the change, what we see currently is only tip of the iceberg. Things are going to change a lot more. And that's something that we should be prepared for. I can define, what will try and change. But as I said, right now, most of the leaders are themselves trying to figure out how the world is changing. There are many theories which are being published. People are writing and speaking about it, but incredible lot is going to change, and that's why I said it's going to be a seismic shift in the way we live life. You can only reflect from your own examples. I'm sure many of you are working from home. Many of you can't travel back to your home country. Many of you can't be with your family. uh, Schools and colleges have completely gone online, if not closed. um, uh, if you work from home, if you study from home, you can work anywhere. I think it's a level playing field. It doesn't matter. The fact that I'm sitting in foothills of Himalayas and talking to people across the world so easily, where Ernest could reach out to me and I could connect and do this particular session, that demonstrates how the world has become a level playing field. It's really flat in that sense. Um, uh, Tom Friedman had written this book, The World is Flat, long time back, but I'm saying this is how we're living it now. This is how it's coming to life, and this is just the beginning. And what happened around us, what happened with the pandemic, how it impacted us, how could we have anticipated this, or how can we see what's happening? Well, crashing oil prices, unraveling of financial institutions, ignore the bank that I'm stating there because that's an Indian bank, but softening of growth, social unrest, economies in recession. These are some of the signs that we started seeing. um, on its own, it may not have collapsed entire economic ecosystem, but now it's becoming a real threat, sweeping businesses as it crosses borders. The pandemic, the way it has impacted industries, because every industry is linked to the other industry. We can see how small impact on different economic ecosystems is becoming a large tsunami. the way it is impacting businesses and industries. There are things which are happening within a business, and I'm sure some of you may be experiencing it. Marketing budgets are being slashed, hiring is frozen, revenue streams are not there. Um, Staffing matrices are being redrawn across companies as the virus spreads. So, top line of a company, which is the amount of profit that you make, and the bottom lines are slashed like never before. Sorry, top line is the revenue, and bottom line is the eventual profit that you make. They're being slashed, they're being reduced like never before. And that is going to have an impact on everyone. Absolutely. So, since we are seeing that pandemic is not just about virus which is going to impact me physically, my health, but it is going to impact everything: the way I live my life, the way I go about, conducting my life, the way I buy, the way I, read, the way I study, the way I work. All of this is changing. So, what's the most valuable real estate in the world? It's a question that I wanted to ask myself. While I'm thinking about all of this, and I spoke about how offices, for instance, if we were paying a lot of money for our offices and everyone starts working from home, and this is how we work, then maybe those offices are not required. The prices are going to drop. No one would want to pay the kind of rents that we have paid or we are paying. So, what's the most valuable real estate in the world is a question I asked myself. And I came up with an answer where I thought uh, digital. Digital, actually, the screen of my handheld or my laptop is becoming the most important real estate. I seem to be doing everything, digitally now. I shop online, I read online, I connect with my family online, I communicate online, I study online, and I'm, doing Zoom, and I'm doing Google Meet, and I'm doing WhatsApp. Um, Everything seems to be happening online. So the most important real estate is actually not the offices, nothing, but it's actually really the digital screen that you have with you, and that's what the competition is going to be for. So let's some of these things that are changing. I think digital first is going to become the new normal, in the sense that whatever you could do digitally, now you will do first digitally before you do it physically. Earlier people used to do physically and then think about digital, but I think that has changed. There's some amount of reverse globalization, regionalization, localization is going to happen. Local economies will flourish, local manufacturing is happening. That's just, you can't avoid it. That's an impact. I don't think we can completely get rid of globalization. We are highly interconnected, but certainly with the new sort of political, economic climate that's developing in the world, my sense is that more local manufacturing, localization, wanting to consume local is going to happen. Focus on domestic markets. You can't access international markets easily. Um, People are closing their borders. Travel is restricted. Trade routes are getting frozen. So, perforce you to focus on your domestic markets. That's an interesting dynamic because now you're producing only for your domestic market. Investment money will go in pivoting businesses. So if you're running a startup and you want to, put money early, you're putting money to scale a business, to commercialize, to develop a product. Now people will actually spend money in pivoting their business. That is changing their idea, thinking about how should I go to market? What should I make? So business models will need innovation. um, Enterprise focused startups will be as impacted as consumer oriented startups. People thought consumer internet startups where people were buying things, and now people figured that, okay, I don't need to buy this. This is not an essential. And certainly the overall sentiment is that I should save, I should secure, I should take care of myself, my family, and not waste my money. That is impacting all the consumer oriented startups, but enterprise focused startups are also going to get impacted because enterprises are not making as much money. And if they're not making as much money, even if you were government focused, you're going to get impacted. Government is not going to be able to make as much money from taxes as they were making earlier. So the impact is all pervasive. It's across the board. Talent market is going to change. People might be So earlier you couldn't find people, now you'll be able to find people, but then you'll be able to, work with people across the globe. So what will happen to people who are available locally to you? So there are going to be very interesting, and that's why I said dynamics. I can't quite, pin it down myself, but the overall talent market situation, the way people become available to startups and to businesses to do things is going to change in future. And saving sentiment will go up, which I was already talking about. So these are some of the broad changes which we're going to see around us. And that would, sort of force us to reset, rethink, and reorient. If you're in a leadership role, if you're in a thinking role, if you're someone who actually takes the lead in what happens in your organization, then you have to reset, rethink, and reorient just to survive. I mean, forget about growth, forget about scale, forget about, making a difference. First, you got to survive. And what would happen then? So more automation, artificial intelligence will come in everywhere. It's a double-edged sword. How much artificial intelligence should be there? How much we should succumb to it? How much should we control it? How much should it control us? But in general, more automation is going to happen. Automation is cheaper. Automation is going to, add a lot of value. So automation is going to happen. That we have just fast progressed the way automation and artificial intelligence is going to come in our life because we have gone digital. We have created more data. For artificial intelligence to create, to grow, you need more data, and we are creating more data. Every time I go online on Zoom, I create data. Every time you connect, every time you do something, when you have a digital footprint, you have more data. The Western model of development will be questioned. Um, and I'm sure, the people that I'm talking to in Africa, you have always sort of thought about this. People in Eastern part of the world have thought about it, but we have followed the Western model. We have looked towards America. We have looked towards Europe to define what is development. And I think some of us who came from different parts of the world, maybe some of you came from, different communities. You understood different ways of life, indigenous ways of life from the communities, from the regions that we came from, and we defined, development very differently. But because the economic wave came, everyone started believing in the Western model of development. So that is something that's going to come under question with what's happening around us. Um, the other thing is everything, you name it and it's down. What's essential and what's not. I was talking about it, that essentials have become important, but essentials themselves as to how much people consume has also come down. And highly leveraged systems have become a big question mark. What do I mean by highly leveraged systems? I think with the Western model of development and economic growth also came leveraged systems where everything was leveraged in the sense that I could borrow as much as I want. I wanted to build things for scale, and I leveraged everything for that. Were not conservative. People were not sort of, people were not uh, thinking, how do I go, step by step. People always, went for the big bang. And that is going to become a big question mark, given how the sentiment of people is changing. The next question is, while you're thinking about resetting, rethinking, and reorienting, is how do we focus on real value creation and sustainability? What is it that we are solving? What is worth solving? Um, what is it that, how do my initiatives impact other people? How do my initiatives impact environment? Am I, really creating value or not? Because that's what is going to get rewarded. People will pay for real value creation. If you're running a business, if you're building a startup, if you're part of an organization, and you don't think about real value creation, sustainability, then people will not pay you for what you're producing, and you would eventually, shut it down. We should also think about mental cost beyond physical and economic. Everyone is thinking about infrastructure, industry, physical cost, economic cost, but no one is thinking about mental cost. How it is changing the way we are going to live our life if people are going to be, stuck in homes, looking at a screen, interacting with people through different ways of technology, then we will adapt, but it will come at a mental cost. We are, we came, some of us and many of us came from communities where we needed to see people, we needed to talk to them, we needed to celebrate functions, we needed to, be with our families. And there was a lot of social interaction, warm proximity. And if that is going away, and the pressure of, making yourself productive, learning from home, suddenly, that lot of that onus has come on an individual. So that is going to cost, a lot mentally, and those costs have to be kept in mind as well. So now probably you get a sense of, what I meant by how things are changing, why we need to think about resetting, rethinking, and reorienting ourselves. Um, but at the same time, never let a crisis go to waste. Use it as a catalyst for innovation. Only when things are in a crisis, people innovate. People use different ways and means to figure out the solution, and that is what leaders are supposed to do. The other interesting thing that I wanted to say, and I've read, is that a lot of people are investing in ventilators because everyone said coronavirus needs, support of ventilator. People would probably need to take external life support for breathing normally. And I strongly believe that we don't need a ventilator. We need stronger immunity and a lifestyle change. And I don't say it for ventilators, but I'm saying it more as a symbol for the comment that I'm making, or more as a sort of overarching philosophy that I wanted to talk about. That we seem to be fixing symptoms. We're not necessarily fixing the fundamental, foundational things on which all of this is built. If we focus on stronger immunity and a lifestyle change, then we don't need a ventilator. So shouldn't we be building businesses? Shouldn't we be solving problems? Shouldn't we be thinking about things that we do with ourselves, our efforts, our time, our energy, and our money, which focus on foundational things, which focus on stronger immunity and a lifestyle change, and not a ventilator, which is where everyone needs to be, everyone is focusing on and doesn't need to focus on, in my opinion. So let's talk about redesign. What should we keep in mind when we redesign? We've raised all of these questions, and I'm saying that let's not do ventilators. Let's do, let's think about sustainability. Let's think about, how is it I'm going to build stronger immunity and have a lifestyle change. So what should we redesign for? We should redesign uh, our efforts, our initiatives, our organizations for short term as well as the long term. There are things that we might need to do in the short term which would help us cope with the change that is coming our way. But what would be good in the long term is something that we should keep in mind. We should redesign for building confidence. Confidence is taking a hit. What many individuals, many communities, many organizations are going to feel less and less confident because the world is changing. And when the world changes, you do not know where you're going because you do not know the path. There is no beaten path, and you have to figure out. And that is something that is important. We should bring back the trust. People are closing boundaries, their borders. They don't want to talk, they don't want to trade. They, and you can see it around yourself. I don't know where you are, but everyone is wearing a mask. We want to keep away ourselves away from other people. Some of it is maybe perhaps prudent in the current scenario while we contain this virus and the spread of this particular virus. But we have to build and redesign for bringing back the trust in people. We have to bring the people focus back. That is probably the most important thing, because if the technology is going at a berserk speed, at the fast speed, AI and automation are taking over, then what about people? What about human beings? So we have to bring back the people focus. Putting science and tech where it is needed. Solve the problems with science and technology that needs solving, not the ventilators, but actually building the immunity, building the community, and question everything, all your assumptions, all your notions around development, money, success, hiring people, becoming a CEO. If you can question everything, then that would be very helpful, because as the world is changing, It is giving us an opportunity to rethink. And then if I don't change my mind and I go back to the drawing board, then I will probably produce the same thing again. Uh, but unless I go back and question my assumptions, I uh, I would not be able to move forward with something that is new and path breaking. I also wanted to share one small story before I go to the leadership lessons. The ant and the grasshopper. Let me just read it out very quickly. One summer's day, a grasshopper was hopping about, singing to its heart content. An ant passed by, bent over double by the ear of corn he was taking to the nest. Come chat with me instead of toiling, said the grasshopper. I'm saving for the winter, and you should do the same, said the ant. Why to bother about winter now? Enjoy the present, said the grasshopper. But the ant went on its way and continued its toil. When the winter came, the grasshopper died of hunger while the ant had a feast. That's actually the flavor of the day. That's what's going to happen. Leadership is leading the way. What sort of a leader should you be? Given all hell is breaking loose, and we spoke about the changes that are happening, frugality is a virtue. Go back to living values from age old wisdom. Please think about what your grandparents told you. Think about how they lived life back in the villages, how our forefathers actually had certain wisdom that we have forgotten, and frugality was a virtue. Nothing was wasted. So please think about that. Show resilience. Role model the behavior you wish to see in others. Extremely important. Things will get tough. As I said, when you don't know the path, you're in a jungle, you're in a forest, and you have to navigate the forest. So you have to show resilience, because things that you don't expect will come your way. People might lose jobs, people might lose lives, uh, people might struggle with their day to day livelihood, um, and many such things. And you have to show resilience and lead the way. Third, create clarity and transparency. When everyone is confused, people don't know how to act, what to choose, where to study, uh, what decisions to take. I think leaders can set priorities, roles, and responsibilities and show honesty in communicating what they know, what they don't know, and how they can, help others. The last one is, which I think is very important, is pursue a non-binary approach to problem solving. A binary approach to problem solving would be, and I'm assuming many people understand what binary is, which is 0 and 1. I mean, you take basically two things, but when you're solving a problem, keep the options open. Don't limit yourself to this or that, either or, but have more approaches to problem solving, because that would be the again the flavor of the day. You would know what you might need to pick up and what you might need to drop, and you might need to juggle with many options for a little bite. So leadership might mean that you have to pursue a non-binary approach to problem solving. Leadership is also leading the way, which I was talking about in terms of resilience. But there are some simple lessons here. Focus on efficiency, discipline, hygiene, um, innovate, build, construct, create for cohesiveness. I was talking about people focus. I was talking about how business models need to get innovated, how you need to get more constructive. You might have to build again, because everything that you build is either coming crashing down or is becoming meaningless, right? Over communicate. Human to human interaction was never more important than now. I was talking about the mental cost. How would you overcome the mental cost? How would people adapt to the new world? So please communicate more. The fact that I'm talking to Ernest is talking to me, I'm talking to all of you people sitting, thousands of miles away, is how we perhaps need to be. We need to adapt. We need to communicate with each other. Human to human interaction is becoming important. And listen and care for your customers. If you're leading businesses, listen and care for your communities, listen and care for your employees. It's very important to listen and care, and I can't overemphasize that. And last of all, and most of all, rather than last of all, provide hope, be compassionate, show empathy, and help others around you. That's the only way leaders are made. Leaders are not people who lead themselves, but lead other people. And when you lead other people, What does leading other people really mean? Leading other people means helping other people, thinking about them, caring about them, being compassionate, taking care of them. And all of that, if you do and you provide hope, then I'm sure the communities that you're part of, the organizations that you're part of, the startups that you're building are going to be a lot more meaningful, purposeful, and built for future. They will create more happiness, fulfillment in the lives of the people who come in touch with these organizations, and in return you will also feel more fulfilled and purposeful that you are thinking the right way, you're taking the right decisions. With that, I'll stop my presentation, and I'm very happy to take any questions that you might have, either on the presentation or otherwise, given my background, if anything that I can help you with.
Thank you so much, Mr. Saurabh Mittal, for this wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Ernest.
So we are opening the discussion for questions. So please, if you have any question, you can kindly raise up your hands. Okay, so I can see Mr. Kweku raising up his hand. Mr. Kweku, kindly ask your question, please.
Thank you for such a wonderful presentation. I think much has been learned. I would really like you to clarify the old age wisdom, the frugality. I didn't really get it clear. I would be grateful if you could clarify it a bit.
Thank you. I think Kweku Numa, I think that's your name, right? Thank you, Kweku, for the question. What I meant by age-old wisdom is how we lived our life. Um, Probably 100 years from, before uh, today. How is it that your grandfather, your, you know, grandfather's father, great grandfather lived lives in communities? How did they think about their life? How did they take certain decisions? They were probably not, I mean, and we may have a value judgment on how progressive they were, how economically developed they were, and whoever gave us the definition of development. Whoever said development was only about economic development, it was not about human development, social development. Where did the word development came from? How is it that they thought about sharing resources? How is it that they thought about what should they do with their time? How is it that they thought about money? How is it that they thought about food? How is it that they thought about relationships? And many of those things that were being done about 100, years back uh, were probably full of wisdom. What have we done in last 20, 30, 40, 50 years of our presence on this particular planet? We have fast progressed. All the things that we could do wrong, we have created more impact, bad impact on environment. Arguably, we are making more money. We have more doctors, but we have more diseases. We have more colleges. We have more degrees, but are people more educated? And what was the purpose of education? How do we define education? How did they define education? Education was to be able to live a good life, a happy, fulfilled life, a contented life, and have meaning. But that's not what education gave us, perhaps. So what I meant by age-old wisdom is, let's reflect, let's go back and think about people who were here before us, our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, and learn from how they lived their life and what is it that we've forgotten in our chase, in our run towards new knowledge, new wisdom. We have forgotten some of the old things that are equally important, and we need to connect back to them. And they're very different. They're individual to all of us. They're individual to the communities that we came from, the countries, the societies we came from. And that's what I meant by age-old wisdom.
That's great. That's very great. Mr. Kweku, Okay. Please, any more questions? Mr. Raymond. Mr. Raymond. Okay, I don't think Mr.
Yes, yes. Thanks so much, Ernest and Mr. Samita.
Raymond, I can't hear you.
It's been quite an insightful time. I joined very late. The little I heard, I'm quite. This is about your following.
Ernest, did you hear the question from Raymond?
Oh,
So,
please.
if we flood to some of us, and you're also following. How do we follow our leaders so that at one point in time, whilst people we are leading
Ernest,
people for them to learn from specific share with us? Thank you.
Ernest, I could not hear the entire question. It was fading in and out for me. Would you be able to repeat it for me?
I think I also have the same issue. Mr. Raymond.
Okay, yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Yes, I can hear you now. And
Okay.
if the same problems comes, maybe you can type it and I can read it and answer.
Okay, all right. So I'll give my best. Sorry, my network probably has been the problem. But I was just saying that thanks for the insightful talk. I joined quite late, but the little I heard, I mean, I've had a key takeaway. But my question is, this is more or less about lessons for leadership, lessons for leading and all of that. And I'm saying that for us young people, at least from my experience, at one point you find that you are leading people, in which case all the lessons you shared with us are so good. If we flip the coin, at another point, we are following other leaders also.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have some specific lessons you like to share with us when we are following instead of at a time when we are leading? When we are following, what insights would you like to share with us from your experience and from the current situation which we are, so that as we follow, we'll not lose track of certain key lessons we should take from our leaders?
That's a very good question, Raymond. I think what happens when you are being led and what are the key insights? I think some of the things that I shared on leadership stay true. Things like building confidence, uh, building trust, people focus, um, trying to build more cohesiveness, um, perhaps helping your leaders to rethink, reorient, redesign, reset, helping them create more clarity and transparency by raising your voice, asking the right questions. Those are the things that are equally important. I mean, you may be being led by a leader, but I think the other most important thing is don't be blind in being led. Ask the questions, challenge assumptions, and if you do feel that your leader is not taking the right decisions, then you should challenge the leadership rather than staying quiet and just thinking that I'm submitting myself to a leader. You should you should think your mind uh, aloud. You should talk to your leaders, and you should uh, see there are three ways to lead. And I always talk about this in my leadership workshops. You lead yourself, you lead your teams, you lead your communities, you lead the organization, right? So the third level is when you're leading at the level of a system, a community, an organization, a country. Well, lower than that, you're leading a group of people. It's a team. And the first one is you lead self, right? You have to lead yourself. So I'm saying that even if you're following a leader, there are different stages of leadership. You always have to be a leader for yourself. So you should be the leader for yourself. And even if you have a team leader, as long as you're leading yourself, you'll be able to align with that leadership. So my messages or insights do not significantly vary. The only thing that I will overlay with it is you lead yourself, then you lead the teams, and then you lead the larger organization or a country or a community or a society. There are three different kinds of leadership. So you still have to lead yourself. I hope I hope that gives you some insight, Raymond.
Mr. Raymond.
Yes. If I say thanks so much, good answer. I've picked lessons, but just a follow up. My
Thank you.
follow up is that the bit about challenging the assumptions. I think sometimes it is the context, cultural context is key. I do not know so much about your context, but from us here, Ghana, typically, there's a general adage that the elder is always right, and you don't challenge the elder and all of that. So, in a typical cultural sense, if your leader is not on the right path, sometimes you ask the challenging questions and you attempt to be disrespectful. Sometimes you challenge the assumptions and it feels like you don't respect. So, in other words, you've had to deal with that societal box wherein they cage you to naturally align with your leader vis-a-vis having to challenge the assumptions. A lot of the time, my experience has been that you get to a point where you have to walk away.
Mhm.
I want to know, is it a good thing to sometimes walk away when you feel that you ask the questions and the context will not permit you in because they might think you are disrespectful, you are too intelligent, you're challenging your elder, and you can't fit in also because you need to lead yourself first and feel you are better for yourself. Do you walk away? Is it a good thing to do? And at what point do you advise that one walks away, given all these cultural issues I highlighted?
Raymond, thank you. That's a very good question, and I see what makes you the leader that you are. You're asking very interesting, very insightful questions as well. I think it would be foolhardy on my part to give you an advice whether you should walk away or whether you should stay. It is, of course, dependent on many things, and it's a decision that has to be taken by you listening to your internal voice rather than by anyone who's external to you. They cannot take the decision whether you should walk away or whether you should stay. In the cultural context of Ghana or for any other cultural context where you have things like that, you should respect your elders, and the moment you sort of question their decisions or challenge their assumptions, it's like showing disrespect to them, then there have to be ways and means by which you can change things. So, you can disagree. And that's what I meant by perhaps age old wisdom. Connect with it, go back, read stories, read within the context of Ghana how people disagreed, how people debated, how people had a dialogue, how people showed dissent, and why dissent was important to certain things which were being said and done, how disobedient, civil disobedience was demonstrated, how certain movements and revolutions came about. Educate yourself on some of those things within the cultural context of Ghana, and they would be very specific to your culture, your society, your community, I think. So one is about that, exposing yourself to acceptable ways and means by which you can show dissent, disagreement, dialogue, because that's constructive. Just by agreeing to what other people are saying, where your heart does not believe in it, where you feel that you're not being true to yourself, is something that is not going to make you happy. You'll not be able to live with it either. So that is one thing I would say. The second thing I would say is you should always keep the longer term and the ulterior goal in mind. If by walking away you help yourself, you help other people, then perhaps you should walk away. The decision is yours, it will never be anyone else's. But if you think you defeat the purpose by walking away, you actually do not solve for what you need to solve for. You feel like a coward. You feel like, oh, shied away from my responsibility. I should have digged my heels and I should have done this. Then I think it's wrong to walk away. So, but that voice has to come from within. That is your voice. That feeling is yours. And that has to be inside you rather than anywhere. I hope I'm able to throw some perspective on that, Raymond.
Thank you so much. Very insightful. I appreciate.
Thank you. I see one question on the group chat by Samuel Ansong, where he's saying that please, I need a little clarification on talent market dynamics. Well, let me quickly answer that, Samuel. What I mean by talent market dynamics is what I mean by talent market is simply human resources, human capital, how you engage with people, how they come and work for your businesses, how you hire them, how you train them, how you retain them, how they deliver work to you, how you promote them. So the entire employee life cycle, the entire talent market is changing. Why is it changing? Well, for one, I think a lot of people will not have jobs if the economic changes that we are seeing, and if these were to, increase further, if the financial markets were to become unstable. For instance, let me give you some examples. U.S. United States saying, hey, we do not want immigrants to come and work in our country. That has an immediate impact on the Indian engineers who have been for the longest years software engineers going to United States to work in various tech businesses. The entire Silicon Valley is full of Indians who have chosen to settle down in United States and have built businesses there. This has an impact on that particular phenomena. If I everyone is working from home, everyone is working digitally. I live in a remote part of India in the foothills of Himalayas. I can actually work for anyone. I mean, I could work for someone in New York and London if I have to work through Google Meet and Zoom and email and WhatsApp and phone. It certainly changed the talent market dynamics. People will be ready to work in small packets rather than a full-time job. More part-timers, more freelancers. Um, I can actually get my job done remotely. I don't need to pay for many employee benefits that I would pay for earlier. I don't need to provide food in office. I don't need to provide gratuity. I do not need to provide uniforms. So it's just everything in talent market is changing. How you get your work done, how do you engage with the employees, how do you hire them, from where do you hire them, how much you pay them. I mean, I can question and think about everything going forward, right? And that changes the talent market dynamics. If I am a startup and I want to get something done today, I can actually look for the best person sitting anywhere in the globe. I can say, hey, how long would it take for you to do this? 20 hours? Okay, here is the fee that I can pay for you to develop this, and I can engage with anyone. It doesn't matter anymore. Do you need people to have visas to work for you internationally? No. I mean, I can engage with anyone. It doesn't matter. Digitally, I can engage with anyone. The legal, the legal system, the regulatory framework is not geared up to handle this. So that is how the talent market is going to get disrupted.
Insightful. That's very insightful. Please, any more questions? Okay.
Miss, Bridget Inam had a question. She came online, but I don't know. Yeah, if there's
Okay, so for me, I have one question, and that was during the redesigning, you made mention of bringing back trust. So I want to know how would that be possible? Looking at looking at the current situation in which we are.
um, you asked me a question on which we can do, probably many more hours of webinar, Ernest. I can always trust you to come up with the most interesting questions. So how do you redesign for trust? How do you build for trust? I'll try and answer it, sort of briefly, because we can't get into too much detail there. But trust is a two-way street. Uh, Trust is never, built one way. So if you want to redesign for trust, the only thing that you have to do is you have to trust. You have to put trust into the system. You have to put trust into people. You have to design policies and frameworks which, put trust. When you give trust, you get trust back. So do not, I mean, it's saying that you have to change the way, you have to perhaps, and that's what leadership is all about. Leadership is sometimes swimming against the tide. The tide across the world is that we should close down, we should clamp up, we should not let foreigners enter, we should all treat each other with a barge pole from a distance. We should become more sort of we should we should control what happens in our life so closely, guard it, do everything local, um, treat other people with with sort of suspicion, other communities, other religions, other practices, other ways of living. There is little tolerance for diversity. And the world seems to be, despite being more globally connected, we seem to be more insular in our approach. So maybe designing for trust means that we go against this tide and we say, no, we don't believe in this. We don't become more insular, we become more embracing. Rather than closing, we open up. Rather than, becoming one kind, we become many kind. We embrace diversity of all kind. And rather than saying, I need to check everything, I need to shut everything, you say, I don't need to check anything. I need to open everything and start trusting. Put trust where it matters. And if you trust, the trust comes back into a system, is what I would say. That's how you redesign for trust.
Thank you so much. Very insightful. Please, any more questions? Okay, I think no more further questions. Okay, one person has raised his hand. Yeah. Please kindly ask your question.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Mine is not a question per se, but it's just an add-on info to what Mr. Mittal had already said in response to, I think, Raymond's question as to how you are regarded as disrespectful if you challenge the assumptions of your leaders. I think sometimes it also has to do with the approach that we use when challenging these assumptions, which we feel, how do you say it, are not what they should be. So one thing I've realized is that many of these leaders are much obsessed with their reputation and the long respect which they earn from the people. So I think in approaching them on their assumptions, you draw their attention that as to what the assumptions that they have, how that deviates from the long-standing respect that they get from the people. And I think the attention will be drawn to that they have to give you some kind of listening ear, so that in order for them not to lose the respect of the people. And then once you get attention of that leader, I think you'll be able to engage that person will be able to give you that listening ear. But when you go in fooling as such, total, how do you call it, against person, that kind of thing, I think that's one challenge that they have with we young people. They see us to always opposing them, and yet they seem not to understand why we oppose it. But I think on the level of getting the attention that their actions or their assumptions seem to deviate from the long-standing respect that the people have for them, I think they will give you some listening ear to listen to you sometimes. So that was just my contribution in that regard.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Please, any further questions? Okay. Okay, so if there's no further question,
Ernest,
yes, bro.
yeah, some of us really joined late. I don't know if it would be possible to share the slide.
Okay.
Yes, I can share the slides. Not a problem. I'll send the slides to Ernest, and he can pass it along to all of you.
Okay, thank you very much. We are grateful.
Thank you too, Mr. Kweku. Okay, so if there's no further question, on behalf of all the participants and those who joined us on Facebook, Mr. Saurabh Mittal, we want to say a very big thank you to you for your time, for your patience, your ability to share various insights with us, and also making us understand various perspectives to some of the situations we were dealing with or talking about. So I want to say a very big thank you for making time for us. I know it's very late in India. It should be around 11 p.m. But for you to...
Yes, it is. It is 10:45. It's okay. It's not very late, and thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here and be with you all. It was really interesting talking to you. Wish you all the very best in your endeavors, and if at any point in time I can be of any help to any of you, please feel free to reach out. You can take my contact details from us.
Thank you so much too for your time. Do have a wonderful evening.
You too. Have a good weekend, guys.
Thank you.
All the best. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.